Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Now, we've been following all the economic facts, and we are getting more and more indicators that are just pointing in one direction and one direction only. We are seeing signs that problems, well, they're just all over around us. They're just everywhere, and the entire system is coming crashing down. Now, General Motors, it looks like their auto sales, they have crashed by a whopping 15%. And what we're seeing right now is that they've been channel stuffing all the dealer lots right now. And basically they have to stop production because there are so many cars and they have to wait for all these cars to be sold. Now, what we're seeing here is there are many dealerships that just can't move the cars, and this is now becoming a problem. And it's not just GM. We're seeing Fiat. Well, they're down 18%. Chrysler is down 30%. Jeep is down 12%. I mean, Ford is down 7.4%. Volkswagen down 5.8%. The car industry is declining rapidly right now. And it goes back to the same thing we've been talking about for a very long time. These individuals who are losing their jobs, these people who are not making enough money, they're not thinking about going out and buying a new car. Yes, they went ahead and they went to the subprime people, to the subprime people, because they needed to do this, the central bankers, the auto industry, to get as many people in as possible because they were running out of good people with good credit, those who had jobs. So they were going to the bottom of the barrel, trying to find anyone that could buy a car. They've run out of those people. This is the problem right now. And we could see that people are out there and they're saying, you know something? I can basically hold off. I don't need a new vehicle at this point. Or they're buying used. Now, we're also seeing this in the housing market. Yesterday, we talked about how the housing market is continually declining, and we're getting more information that pretty much backs all of this up. U.S. construction right now, the spending on construction, it has collapsed in July to 1.6%. This is the weakest since 2011. And what we're seeing right now is that the federal government construction spending, well, it crashed by 9.5%. This is the largest drop since December of 2010. Public construction spending has hovered in negative territory for the most part of the past year. Government project share of total construction outlays was less than 22% in June, the smallest since 2006. This is not transitory. When we look at the graph and we go back to 2008, 2009, we've been trending downward. We're seeing manufacturing. Well, really nothing has improved there. The hard data in the American economy, it is completely collapsing. And the soft data, that might be going up, but the hard data that shows what's really going on in the economy, it's falling apart. New orders are slumping right now, and it looks like at this point that the situation in manufacturing has not improved whatsoever. Now, we see that they've been revising the GDP numbers. The BEA also had to adjust personal income spending with the full results released in July's report. Now, what it revealed was very striking. Over the revised period, disposable personal income for the U.S. households was slashed cumulatively by over $120 billion to just under $14.4 trillion. Now, we also see that government pay, well, that has remained flat over the past 3 years, growing in the mid 2% to like around 3% range. Wages and salaries for private workers, well, they've steadily declined. Wage growth has slumped to just 2.5% in June. But there's something even more troubling about all of this. In the revision that they put out, the drop in income and burst in spending means for the average household's bank account following the latest annual revision. So what this means is that they revised personal income, personal spending, and this revision means that $250 billion or $226.3 billion in savings was just wiped away from U.S. households. This means that either households will have to incur this much debt to continue on their previous spending trendline, or $250 billion in potential growth from the future economy has just been chopped off. Now we need to remember something. 70% of U.S. GDP is the result of consumer spending. And what they're doing right now is they're trying to manipulate everything. And these manipulations, well, they're not working out too well. We also see income growth. There's a problem there. Now, after last week's revised BLS data, which showed desperate Americans saving the least since the recession, personal income growth ended in June at 0%. They missed expectations and falling to its lowest level since November. Spending growth has also slumped. So real personal spending month on month has declined rapidly, and it has completely stalled. And when we look at the economy, we can see that this does have an effect on what is going on in the retail market, in the housing market, in the automobile market. And it shows that most of this manipulated data that they've been throwing at us is completely not true. And when we really look closely at what the economy has been doing, we can see that it is completely falling apart. These are the real facts. Yes, they can throw out the unemployment numbers. They can tell it's 1%. It doesn't really matter. But when we start looking at spending patterns, income patterns, when we look at the automobile market, the retail market, this is actually telling us the true story of what is going on. Remember, what they've been doing is they've been creating this illusion to make us believe that this economy is doing well, and they needed all different ways to keep this illusion alive. Now, one of the ways was during the Obama presidency, where they needed a way for the treasury bonds to be purchased because a lot of countries were dumping treasury bonds, and the Fed was having a difficult time continually buying all the treasuries. Not that they can't do it. They wanted a different financial area where they can have treasury bonds continually be purchased. So they came up with the idea of MyRA, which is a retirement vehicle, and they wanted the American people out there to use this. Now, once again, this is part of the Ponzi scheme, because when you place your money into these MyRAs, guess what you're purchasing? U.S. government bonds. So back then, in 2015, Obama ordered the creation of the so-called starter accounts 3 years ago, and they became available at the end of 2015. Since then, around 20,000 accounts have been opened, with participants contributing around $34 million. And according to the Treasury, the median account balance was around $500. The program has cost, though, $70 million. And it's costing $10 million a year to keep this operational. So basically, the government is spending a lot of money to have the people of the United States buy treasury bonds. And right now, Trump is looking at this and saying, no more. This is done. He's cutting it off. There's no purpose in it right now. What the government actually did was they set up some type of Ponzi scheme. And we see these Ponzi schemes all over the place. Stock market is really a Ponzi scheme. It's completely manipulated. And when we look at the stock market today, the last time the stocks were this expensive was back in the year 2000. And we know what happened in the year 2000. This was the tech bubble. And we know what happened during this period. And we are right back at where we were back then with the valuation of stocks. So what are we seeing right now? We are seeing everything continually pointing to one thing and one thing only. The economy is deteriorating very, very quickly. We're seeing these real facts that are coming out, these real indicators that are coming out, they are showing us that everything is rapidly falling apart. And there's nothing the government can do, there's nothing the Fed can do, because what happens when reality sets in? This has always been their problem. When people start to realize that the economy isn't what it really is, this is when it falls apart. This is when they lose control. They can manipulate up to a certain point, but people stop believing in the manipulation at a certain point, and this is where everything starts to go south. And we realize that at this time, they need to keep the illusion going for as long as they possibly can, because what they want to do is they want to turn around and blame this all on Trump. They've already started the process of pointing the finger at Trump, at his policies and everything that he's been doing. And we can see as we move forward, they're going to continually do this. Now, we know that Trump is going to be looking at this sanctions bill that the Senate passed, and I think it's kind of veto-proof right now, unless he can come up with some way, and we mentioned other ways yesterday in the report of how he can maybe lessen the impact. But again, we have to understand that this might have an effect on the economy also, because if this is signed, or even if he vetoes it, it will still go forward, and this will bring other countries closer together. It'll bring China, Russia even closer. It'll bring the European countries even closer. And other countries might start making deals with each other where they might not trade in the petrodollar just to get back at the United States. Now, once again, this is going to have an effect on the entire economy, because as the petrodollar fails, as more and more countries, they decide not to use it, well, those dollars come back to the United States. And what we see here is once those dollars enter circulation, we will see inflation. And once these countries stop using the petrodollar to purchase oil, what happens to the price of oil? That might even go up. So what the deep state, what these bad guys are doing right now, they're doing whatever they possibly can to maintain control of the system. And by doing this, they don't care if it hurts the system. They don't care about anyone except themselves. Because look, what purpose does it serve in pushing these sanctions out there? I mean, the allies of the United States are saying this is completely wrong. But the Senate, the House, they don't care. Corporations are saying this is not going to work out well. But it doesn't matter, because they're not working for the people. They're working for other entities. And this is the major problem. And as we continue down this path going throughout the rest of this year, as we've been tracking all of this, we're seeing everything deteriorate very, very quickly. It's accelerating right now. Other countries, even the allies of the U.S., they're looking to move away from the U.S. And we can see that as this happens, well, it's not going to turn out well for the U.S. because the system's going to collapse. These other countries are going to be looking at Russia or China or other countries. They're not going to be doing business with the U.S., and this is not going to help the situation at all. But when we look at what the government is doing with the Senate, the House, the bad guys, they really don't care, because they only see one thing and one thing only. They want their way. And we can see right now there are so many different black swans out there that could hit at any moment, and the Fed, the government, there's nothing they can do. Yes, the Fed will then step in and they'll say, oh, don't worry about it, we'll save the economy once again, and they'll start creating as much currency as they possibly can, called stimulus. This is exactly what they want to do. They want to lower the interest rates dramatically because they realize the debt cannot be sustained, and once they start the stimulus up again, the debt starts to rise very, very quickly. And remember, their objective is to control all of this, to make sure they have the right blame, the right narrative. And this is what they are trying to do. And this is their entire plan. But we can see right now, there are so many different factions. There are so many things happening right now that one little thing can go wrong and their whole narrative goes down the toilet, and people point the finger at the central bank, and there's nothing they can do about it. So what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to maneuver in such a way where they can bring the economy down on their own terms. This is why they're looking at the interest rates. This is why they're talking about unwinding, because they know once they start doing these things, this is not going to work out for the economy, but they can say they're trying to make the economy better and then point their finger. So no matter what, no matter which way we're looking at this,